These stories take more time to find, so if you'd like your story featured, send it to the r/Malliem subreddit and use postflare to tag it as a true scary story. When the snow fell. I've been born and raised in the U.S. state of Maine my entire life. I've lived near the coast, in the city, and for the past 2 years I've been living in the middle of the woods with my grandparents. A very desolate spot between two semi-populated towns in central Maine, with little to no neighbors. It is undeniably beautiful. I have been coming to this exact house since I was born, and have always noticed something off about the woods. Never felt a feeling of danger, just that I was being observed. Over the years, I have grown accustomed to it and forgot about it after I had moved during the pandemic. But now, it's back. I noticed it during my first night sleeping here. Stacks of boxes still in my new room, and shitty curtains hung on the wall haphazardly to ensure a sense of security. At 4:32 a.m., I woke up to what I thought was a radio right outside my door. The house had an old integrated radio speaker system wired into every room of the house, but it had not been connected for 2 decades. As I thought about those radios, I kept listening to what was playing, a genre of music I had never heard, sung in a language that I didn't recognize. I had always heard tales of Wendigo and skinwalkers here in Maine, and the newly released, at the time, Mandala catalog YouTube horror series wasn't helping the paranoia. I kept listening. At exactly 5:30 a.m., the noises stopped and the sun rose. I had never felt so scared in that house prior to that moment. Several months pass and my grandfather gets sent to a veteran's home due to his worsening condition, so now it is just myself and my grandmother. My grandfather would sometimes mention how he hears music in a language he didn't understand, but I just associated that with his dementia. My grandmother would hear it too, but I just didn't think much of it. After some time, it was October of 2024. No major activity that disturbed or spooked myself or my grandmother, and all was relatively going well. I've been going on walks down the main road at any time of day and was feeling safe in my environment. Late October, it started to get colder, darker, and overall more desolate. I'd seen some deer staring at me in my front yard, but looking back on it, I'm not exactly sure what those 6 pairs of glowing white dots were. They were too high off the ground to be deer. I went out and measured relative to the tree they were near and got around 11 feet. The snow kept falling over the coming weeks, the forest got quieter, and the days got shorter. I had heavy night owl tendencies due to my night shifts I used to work, so I would go to bed anywhere from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. Around mid-November is when the noises started. Light scratching on the siding of the house and slower thumping of heavy rhythmic footsteps outside. The tracks looked bipedal with a wide berth. I know bear, moose, deer, and human tracks well. This didn't look like any of those. I would mention it to neighbors and they would just ask me to not talk about it. All they would say was, "Be careful." Keep in mind, these people have been living here longer than I've been alive. I started doing research and found that the town sat upon old Penobscot tribal land and was a common place for rituals and burials to be held. The sounds got louder and more invasive. The scratching became more of a carving motion. The slow steps turned to a heavy and agile run. It was angry. I could sense that whatever was here didn't like me, or at least didn't like what I was. It would scuttle across the roof and bang on the doors. And then, one day, my grandmother told me she saw it. 2 white glowing eyes outside of her window, beaming into her soul from the dark forest, at precisely 3 a.m. I immediately burned sage outside and inside the property, and made an offering to the spirits, of tobacco and chicken bones, in line with local tribal spirituality. All this sounds like something out of a book or a shitty Netflix drama, but since that day, the weather has warmed up and the noises have stopped. My depression has gotten better and I don't stay up as late anymore. But every now and then, I still get that feeling of being observed. And last night, as I passed by my old room across the hall to go to bed, I saw something big dash outside the window. Shortly after, we got a winter weather advisory. As the snow paints the landscape white, my anxiety grows. Whatever it is, it doesn't seem to hate me, just more so tolerate my existence. All I really know about it is that it got worse when the snow fell. A demon wanted my baby. Let me start off by stating that although I've always been into the occult, besides some tarot readings and reading my daily horoscope, I'm not a regular practitioner. That being said, I went through a moment a few years back that has never left me. Most people that read this won't believe me. All I'm really looking for are answers. It all started about 13 years ago when I was 21. I had gotten into an argument with my parents and had spent about a year and a half couch surfing. I was a big party girl and my parents were very conservative Catholics. They were also broke and couldn't or wouldn't support me. At 21, I was on my own. Luckily, I'd managed to get a decent job as a bank teller and was ready to have a steady place to call my home. On my search, I came across an ad on Craigslist. An elderly couple had a room for rent within walking distance of my job. I set up an appointment to check it out. The room was a good size, painted pink, which was my favorite color, and the elderly couple seemed very sweet and wholesome. They made mention of a few rules: no smoking, no overnight guests, and no drugs. I found these to be pretty reasonable requests. So I took it. Again, I was desperate and wanted my own space. Weeks passed and everything seemed to be going great. I was partying a little less, trying to focus more on work, and for the most part, my roommates didn't bother me. In fact, the older woman would always offer food to me, or a drink, or some fresh fruits from her garden. Things like that. Fast forward to about a month when I find out I'm pregnant. My first thought was, I'm 21. I don't have a place of my own. I can't have this baby. So I went to the clinic, but they were closed. I made another appointment at a different clinic in a completely different part of town. And again, they ended up closing. Something about a bomb threat being reported. So I'm walking back out to my car when suddenly a woman comes up to me, grabs me by the hand, and says, "God gave you this gift for a reason." This is important to me because ultimately it was that moment that made me decide to continue with my pregnancy and keep my baby. In my heart, I truly believe my daughter was a gift from God. So here I am, young, pregnant, dad's out of the picture, my parents aren't speaking to me, and I'm living with complete strangers. I have no idea how I'm going to handle this, but I'm hoping for the best. A few more weeks go by, and I start to notice that my roommates, the elderly couple, create more and more rules they expect me to obey. It went from no overnight guests to no male guests. This irked me because my best friend at the time was a male. Then it changed to no guests. Then suddenly, no one was allowed to leave after 9 p.m. It got to the point where the old woman was sleeping in the living room to make sure I didn't sneak out. At this point, I was like, the fuck? I'm doing my best to be respectful. But this was starting to get out of hand. These are not the original rules I agreed to. It all culminated with a moment where I caught the old lady in my room. I think she didn't realize I was awake or thought I wasn't home. Anyway, I woke up to her standing at the foot of my bed looking at me. It fucking creeped me out. After that, I was like, fuck this, I'm getting a lock. My door didn't have one initially, which wasn't a problem until it was. This should have been my red flag. The next day, I went out and got myself a knob with a lock. I started to install it on the door. When I tell you, these people blew their shit. They started screaming at me, saying I was overreacting, and none of the other girls ever needed a lock. This whole scene only made me feel even more weirded out. To top the creepiness off, that week I started waking up to loud knocks on the wall behind my bed. Yes, like those kinds of knocks. The knocks were extremely loud and would wake me up in the middle of the night. They always seemed to be coming from the wall behind where my bed was. Only thing is, my room was on the edge of the house, and behind that wall was the backyard. So where the fuck were these knocks coming from? It just creeped me out and would make my heart race every time it happened. That was the last straw. It was time for me to start looking for another place. But my prospects were grim. Where could I go that would make me feel safe? While searching, I started staying with friends and sometimes at my parents', saying I missed the company. By this time, me and my parents and I were on speaking terms again. They were finally over being mad and were excited for the baby. We discussed me potentially moving in once the baby was born. They were looking at bigger places that could accommodate us. Everything seemed to be working out. In the meantime, I did everything to try and hide my pregnancy from my weirdo roommates. I don't know. Something in me just kept telling me not to tell them. I just needed to wait about 1 more month and I'd be out of there. One night, a girlfriend of mine, who was going to be leaving town for college, asked me if I wanted to go out for dinner and then watch a movie. We ended up watching Possession. It was scary and we both liked the lead actor, so we thought, why not? Cut to about 2 hours later. She dropped me back off at my place since most of my friends had gone out partying. I got in, watched a funny cartoon, and fell asleep at about 11 p.m. Give or take an hour. That's when it happened. This crazy fucking moment that is burned into my memory. It started with a nightmare. I swear on everything, I'd never had a lucid dream before. But for some reason, that night, I did. For some reason, I knew I was having a dream and told myself to wake up. I remember saying to myself, it's just a dream. Just wake up. And I did. I woke up, but not before I heard those damn knocks behind me. I was in a panic, heart pounding, sweating, trying to catch my breath. After a few minutes, though, I seemed to be okay. Then, all of a sudden, this fucking demon-looking bitch crawled out of my closet. Crawled! Like those creepy contortion crawling you see in the movies. The freaky bitch crawled up to the foot of my bed and pointed to my stomach. She smiled this fucking evil-ass smile. I was frozen. I felt like I couldn't move or scream or breathe, nothing. Then, all of a sudden, she lunged toward me, and I woke up. Again, this has never happened to me. Ever. You might be thinking, well, you watched a scary movie with a scary bitch in it, so logically you saw something scary. Okay, but that doesn't explain the knocking that started weeks before, or how and why I had an entire dream that I woke up from before I saw her. It's just something I've always questioned. I just feel like that house or those people were evil. Something there was wrong and I needed to get out. Long story short, I begged my parents to move back in and was out by that weekend. As years have passed, I've always thought about that house and those people. I've tried looking on websites like Zillow or True People Finder to get information about that couple, but never am able to come across any information on them. Somehow, my name is tied to that address, but they don't come up at all. Again, you don't need to believe me. I understand it sounds like a load of bullshit. Every time I've told a friend or family member this story, they look at me like I'm full of it. I have looked online and asked psychics what this could mean. I just have this need to know what the fuck happened there. What could have been going on? Why did I keep hearing knocks? Why did that thing point to my pregnant belly? There has to be an explanation. I am happy to report that I've never seen anything like that since or heard those knocks. So, I'm hoping, whatever it was, it stayed with that house. But I'm worried something might have attached itself to my daughter. Does anyone out there know what could have happened? Don't go down that road. It was a late spring evening in our little town. A group of delinquents had gathered to drink a few beers and discuss what kind of stupidness we were going to commit that evening. Not really a group of tight friends, just whoever congregated outside the Dairy Queen. Whatever we were going to do, it would probably involve some kind of laws being broken. Someone piped up and suggested we go to the academy. Now, we had all heard stories about the place, but none of us had actually been there, or even believed the stories about it being a gathering place for the occult when the academy closed for summer. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't feeling this one. It seemed like there were too many people jumping in. There were a few people who decided to go that I barely knew. There were 3 or 4 loads of people in pickup trucks, but my small group would be going in a car. Not the best choice for this kind of trespassing. Along with me was my buddy, Jess. I'd known him for a few years. Then there was Alex. I didn't know him all that well. He was a state wrestling champion in high school. Kind of 230-pound goofball. Then there was Roy. He was a couple years older than the other 3 of us. My friend Lee had recently said that we were kind of assholes because we just used Roy to buy us beer. I mean, I always assumed Roy had a life and wouldn't want to hang out with us. Well, unfortunately for him, he decided to that night. We arrived at the entrance of the academy. I expected a locked gate, but it was wide open. My car was kind of loud, so I parked about halfway down the quarter-mile drive, and we walked with another group, but the trucks drove on in. I was a little surprised by the size of this place. We all ended up on the south side of the property. There was a little house that was a schoolroom. Nothing was locked. We just walked on in. The place looked like it was frozen in time, like something that hadn't been used in 20 years. This was the only building we entered. Now, we may have been doing some illegal stuff, but we had no intention of vandalizing anything. We walked out and headed up one of the roads toward another building. Another group went another way. Picture a couple small pickups and others walking with the trucks. I didn't like the idea of them driving in there like that. Vehicles tend to make way too much noise, but there were some girls who didn't want to walk. As we walked towards the second building, my thoughts were, I've seen enough. Let's go. These idiots in trucks are going to get us in trouble. I told Roy and Alex we were going. Jess had split off and gone with the other group. As we walked on the path, I see one of the trucks flying down towards us. They slide to a stop and tell us we need to go. They saw people through a window on the north end. They were all wearing robes in a candlelit building. And they had been spotted. You know how people act when they're genuinely scared. They sped off, and the second truck came flying by, yelling for us to get out. They didn't even bother to slow down. People in the backs of the trucks bouncing around the bumpy paths. After a moment of panic of what to do, we started running. But then we heard the voices coming towards us. At that point, they were far enough away that you couldn't make out what they were saying. Then I could hear an ATV coming. We were cut off. We were in a wooded area about 400 feet long between 2 paths that merged together on both ends. The others had escaped out of a back way on the south end, but my car was parked off the side of the main entrance. It didn't matter. They were closing in too quickly. We lay down in the woods, not even 15 feet from one of the paths, hoping we can find a way out. I can hear 2 people walk right past us on the path. They're not speaking. I don't even know what time it is, but probably around 10:30 p.m. on a moonless night. It's dark. So dark that you can't even see the other 2 laying right beside you. I figured if they went towards the back exit, maybe we had a chance to go towards the car. But then I thought, the cops are probably on their way. Then we hear the dogs. This is bad. Keep in mind, this is a time before cell phones. We are completely cut off unless we can get to the car. But what if they've already spotted the car? We're screwed. As the dogs get closer, I whisper to the others to cover themselves in leaves. The leaves were thick, plenty thick to hide completely. This is when Alex begins crying. The state wrestling champ. I'm telling the guy to just be quiet, but he keeps whimpering about us going to jail. By then, it's pretty clear they're not calling the police. They intend to deal with us on their own. I asked Alex if he wanted to die, because that's what will probably happen if they find us. We finally get him under control. We just lay, covered in leaves. Did I mention the ants? Minutes turn into an hour. Every time it seems they're gone, you hear them, or the dogs. Then I hear my car start. I left the keys in it so I wouldn't lose them. They got my car. But then I hear it leaving, not coming towards us. Then I can hear it going through the gears on the highway. What the hell? Now I had no idea how we were going to get out. The patrol didn't stop either. Every few minutes a truck, an ATV, or people walking with the dogs. The dogs got so close once I thought one was going to step right on us. At what I think was about 2 a.m., I think to myself, if the sun comes up, we're in trouble. The cover of darkness is our only hope. But how do you silently get 3 people out? The crunching of the leaves alone would alert the dogs at least. Then I don't even know where the hell we really are in relation to the entrance and exit. This place is a lot of acres in a pretty secluded area. A couple more hours roll by. I consider running alone. I know Roy would follow. Alex would get caught. I couldn't do that to him. But I know it won't be long before the sky becomes lighter. A few minutes later, a light rain begins to fall. This is what we need. The rain will mask the sound of the leaves crunching. I whispered to Roy that it was time. He relayed the message to Alex. It felt good to finally stand after hours. I looked carefully to make sure there was no one close by, at least for that moment. We'd have to walk the path towards south at least 1,000 feet before there was any more cover. We slowly step out on the path and start walking at a brisk pace. Alex wants to talk. We keep having to tell him to be quiet. About halfway down the path to the next cover, I see headlights. Oh, shit. We hit the deck in the grass beside the path. It's a small car. It turns away from us, then starts backing down the path. I was momentarily confused. As it backed up at a high rate of speed, I recognized the taillights. It was Lee in his Honda CRX. I yelled, "Lee!" He popped the hatch open and yelled back, "Hurry, get in!" The 3 of us sprinted down that path. I could hear the dogs again, then headlights behind us. 3 full-size adults jumped in the hatch of a CRX, legs hanging out, as Lee sped out the back way. I couldn't believe it. It was so close to dawn. Once we were well clear of the academy, we got out of the car. I'm like, "How did you know? How did you find us?" He thought he had seen my car driving through town, late. He turned around and got the car to stop. It was Jess, in my car. The guy had gotten out in the back of a truck, then come back and got my car. I was mad about that for a long time. He knew we hadn't gotten out and just took off in the only way we had out. Of course, if he hadn't, the car might have been discovered. I still couldn't believe he just left us out there, and a chance encounter with Lee was all that saved us. For years, this story got told. I never wanted to go near the place again, and I don't know anyone who ever did. I don't know who the people were or what they were doing, but it completely fit the stories we had heard about the place. I don't think I've seen Roy or Alex since that year. Jess died a few years ago. I run into Lee every now and then.